All right, welcome back everybody to LiveStream under the Moonshine number 262. Glad to have you here. So we are going to go ahead and get right back into Cabin Fever. Now, the last episode we played on Wednesday night, in episode number 261, our little new friend, Mallory, I believe her name is, started getting sick with what seems to be the sickness that is essentially COVID. In this, remember in Cabin Fever, probably started making this game back when COVID was a big unknown, and this is kind of the extreme of what COVID could have been, wiping out a lot of people and having people kind of go into a lawless, everybody for themselves, everybody stuck in quarantine, everybody avoiding everybody kind of a situation, and definitely no vaccinations or anything like that in Cabin Fever. And it seems like our little friend here, who admitted in the last episode as well, opened up and said she first lost her mother to the virus, and then her sister caught it, and her sister locked her out of their own house because her sister didn't want Mallory getting sick as well. So she locked her out of her own house and said goodbye to her through tears through their own window and wished her the best, basically, or whatever. And it was pretty a sad, emotional story Mallory told us as Gus in the game. And now she was wandering around looking for some place to get in out of the cold and rain. When she stepped into our bear trap by our cabin, she came up by our cabin because there were lights there, and she was wandering away from the city and where her home was, just looking for shelter from the wind and cold. When she stepped in a bear trap, we heard her squeal. We felt really bad. We was reluctant to bring her in because we didn't want to catch anything. And now we've essentially kind of fallen in love with her. And same for her. And we've had some. It's kind of a cheeky tale, I guess, but it's pretty adorable, I have to admit. So we're gonna go ahead and jump back in where we left off, where Mallory seems to be getting sick as hell. So we don't know what's going to happen to her. Is this going to be a really bittersweet visual novel? Is it going to end with the death of Mallory? Is it going to end with the death of both of us? What's going to happen? We don't know yet. So we're going to go ahead and pick up where we left off, I believe in chapter 8. Yep. So we're going to go ahead and pick up here. Welcome back, everybody. In the dead of the night, something woke me up. The sound of the wind, an animal, whatever it was, it had pulled me out of some dream. I sat up and I listened. The night was quiet now, nothing but crickets and white noise. I realized I really had to pee. All right. Carefully, so as to not wake Mallory, I got out of bed. I headed downstairs to the bathroom, half asleep, dark. Once I was done, I went into the kitchen for some water. I stood by the window with my glass, looking out at the sleeping world. I wasn't used to being awake at this hour. It was a little bit eerie. I glanced up at the dark loft where Mallory slept. For a while, her coughing had kept her and me awake, but I'd rubbed her back until we both had drifted off. Thankfully, she was now sleeping, resting, or getting the rest that she needed. Worry made my stomach feel sick, my chest feel hollow.
There's no way I'm getting back to sleep now.
I paced back and forth for a moment, dragging my hands across my face. I needed a distraction, something to shut down my brain, or at least get rid of this nervous energy I. Shaking my head, I went to my desk and dropped into my chair. Computers were usually pretty distracting. I turned on the monitor and pulled out my keyboard. It was a membrane keyboard, so I didn't have to worry about making too much noise with my typing. There were more emails waiting in my inbox. One was from a colleague who worked out of Vietnam. The time difference would have meant it was late in the afternoon over there, so she was probably wrapping up her workday as I sat here in the darkness hour of my night. Right? The subject line read, "Remedy distribution underway." Just reading it made my blood boil. I was so sick and tired of these empty promises. And for what? Read the spam anyway, you never know? Fuck it, we'll read it. I know last time we deleted the spam. I opened up the email. I mean, we need to distract ourselves anyway, right? Said we need to distract ourselves so we don't wake up Mallory or whatever. I opened the email anyway, thinking maybe I could find whoever started the vile forwarding chain and send them a piece of my mind. But then my curiosity was piqued. The body of the email had a surprisingly official-looking Global Health Authority logo at the top, and there were multiple language options. I scrolled to the appropriate section and started to read.
Public notice. The worldwide distribution of R-Pandavax is underway. Please read on for information on how and where to seek treatment. Patients who receive R-Pandavax have a 96% chance of recovering, up from the 45% seen with traditional medical intervention. Right, I wish. R-Pandavax rollouts are now taking place, with med tents being set up outside major hospital locations in the countries and cities listed below.
Uh-oh.
Symptomatic individuals should visit their nearest med tent as soon as possible for assessment and hospital admission.
Hang on. This couldn't be real, could it? I scanned down the list and then I saw it. The name of our city.
Is this actually real? R-Pandavax treatment will be administered free of charge with identification requirements relaxed by emergency order. R-Pandavax may also have a preventative effect, and individuals who have not been infected may opt to receive an immunizing dose.
Wow. Yeah, when it's free, chances are it's not a scam, I'm just saying. I scrolled up, down, searching the screen for some evidence that this was a fake, a scam, or some kind of lie. I pulled up the internet and searched R-Pandavax. At least 100 articles came up, all posted within the last 24 hours. Bulletins from different news sources, statements from researchers, schedules being shared.
Mallory!
I called up towards the loft, my voice shaking like crazy, my gaze not leaving my screen. I stood up, tremors running through my whole body.
Mallory, it's real! Mallory, we have to go now!
In the middle of the night? Didn't they just say they have schedules like times and everything? I doubt that the time is at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm just saying. I was dashing up the stairs, staggering toward the bed, ready to pick her up and carry her out of the cabin if I had to. I couldn't believe this. I couldn't believe our luck. It felt like a dream. Could it really be real? I reached across the bed for her, and she wasn't there. Oh no.
Mallory?
Uh-oh. I looked around the dark room wildly.
Mallory!
The cabin remained silent. My heart pounded. Where was she? I raced back down the stairs, calling out again and again as I searched the cabin, throwing open the door to the aquaponics room and the bathroom and the storage room, frantic. Where was she? And that's when I noticed something resting on the kitchen table. A small notebook left open. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Dear John letter, huh? Dear John, a letter. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh. I went over and picked it up. The top page had a note written in purple ink. A lump formed in my throat, and my stomach twisted.
We both know I have it. My only hope is that it's not too late. That I haven't passed it to you. Because I want you to carry on with your life.
Oh no.
Don't worry about me. I'm going back home to find out what happened to my sister. Whatever the answer is, I'm comforted to know we'll see each other again soon. I hope you know I would have stayed with you forever. But I'm thankful we had the time that we did. Love, Mallory.
Aww. I stared at the letter. No. I had only just been lying in bed next to her. I had only just found out that I might actually be able to help her. And now she's gone? I crumpled the paper in my hand, forming a tight fist. In that moment, I was ready to put a hole through my wall. My heart was racing, and I couldn't think straight.
Damn it!
I had to go after her. She couldn't have made it far, not with her leg and how sick she was. I was determined to find her, convince her to come back, convince her that we should be together whatever the circumstances. She needed to know how I felt about her and how much she meant to me. I raced to get dressed, throwing on a sweater and the first pair of pants I found, shoving my feet into some shoes and grabbing the crank-powered flashlight off the side table. There wasn't time to think. I just had to move. I burst through the front door and out onto the porch, nearly tripping down the steps before racing across the muddy lawn, my feet splashing in the puddles. I was panting, sprinting almost blindly through the dark in whatever direction I thought Mallory might have gone. I was through the garden, over the hill, and nearing the woods when... Oh no, he steps in a bear trap. Oh no. Oh no. Choco Tuesday, reminder, save before your choices. Okay, I'll remember that. Thank you. Suddenly, I slammed against the ground. Pain shot through me. It took me a moment to get my bearings and understand what happened. The trap! How the hell? But no, I'd completely forgot about how I moved it. How had I let this happen? I sagged against the ground, gritting my teeth. I couldn't let this slow me down. I gathered the strength to push myself up and look back at my foot. It was my foot that had been caught, and at a strange angle. I could only assume it was because of the way I'd been running so fast, practically flying over the sloping ground. I twisted and reached to release the trap, which took a few tries. Finally, I was able to scramble away and stand up, but the pain in my foot was excruciating. No time to deal with that now. I continued down the path, limping heavily and bleeding into my shoe, calling Mallory's name. As I made my way, I shoved my hand into my sweater pocket and pulled out my flashlight, same one that had led me to Mallory on that first night. I immediately started cranking it, hoping against hope that it would lead me to her again. But as I entered the trees, I stopped, hesitating. Mallory's note said she was headed back to the city to check on her sister. Most likely, she'd taken the footpath through the woods, the path she'd taken here to get here in the first place. I might be able to catch up with her if I followed, but it depended on how much of a head start she had. If I followed the old driveway instead, I'd eventually make it to the highway. It was a longer path, but a more straightforward one. And if I could manage to flag down a car and get a ride, then I might even reach the city before Mallory did. I had to pick quickly. So head for the highway or continue through the trees. So Choco Tuesday comes in and reminds me to save before every choice, so let's do that. Let's go ahead and save here in slot 3, just so we can always come back to a certain save slot. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and save this in slot 1. Yes, we'll overwrite that. Okay. And then, yeah, we'll... Okay, that's fine. Then we're going to go back. And then we're going to make our choice. We're going to have to catch up to her, so she's probably got at least an hour or two lead on us. And I would probably continue through the trees if I hadn't stepped in the bear trap, but since I'm bleeding into my shoe, I think that I'm going to hope that a car picks me up, and maybe not only to help me with my foot, but maybe to get be able to pass her up, by car or some kind of help. So I think I'm going to head for the highway. Hope for the best. Both options seemed so risky. I took my chances and started down the driveway toward the main road. Already, I could barely walk on my injured foot. My shoe felt tight and wet, and every step sent pain shooting through my soul. The light from the flashlight bobbed ahead of me, lighting up the potholes and stones for me to step around and over. It took longer than it should have, but soon I was at the turn where the driveway met the main road, with high mast lights towering over me. The road itself was desolate, of course. Very few people traveled anymore. Almost looks like The Walking Dead. In fact, this highway scene right here, you know what this looks like? This looks like exactly the scene where The Walking Dead, the original Walking Dead game, starts, where the dude's in the cop car, and the cop car comes through this way. And looking back at the city's back there. This almost looks like exactly the same scene. If any of you guys have played the Walking Dead game, that cop car is going this way on this side of the road. It ends up, steering off and crashing over here or whatever. But you can see the city they're leaving in the background. Definitely reminds me of the Walking Dead game. Obviously it's not, but it looks the same. Still, as I staggered along the shoulder in the direction of the city, I kept on cranking my flashlight, swinging it back and forth on the off chance anyone might come along and see me. The thought of Mallory kept me going. I walked for a long, long time. It felt like a ghost world.
Please, is anyone out there?
Yep, this is why I took this main road, because I was hoping we would get some help. My voice held more despair than I'd even realized I was feeling. But then, as if my desperate voice had summoned it, a car did appear in the distance. I heard it before I saw it, and when I saw it, I started waving my arms again. You're supposed to stay away from people, my brain reminded me. No, not right now. Not right now. You want help.
Shut up! That's not important right now!
But what's important is your foot, not Mallory so much as your own foot, man. The car was getting closer, its headlights glaring. I tried to jump, but my foot hurt too much.
Stop! Please! Stop! I need help!
The car began to slow down. I stumbled towards it. The window rolled down and the driver peered out, saw my bloodied foot, and they gasped.
Oh my god, what happened to you?
I'm trying to get to the city. Please, I'm hurt, and she's...
I couldn't even say it. How could I explain this?
Get in, I'll take you to the hospital.
I wanted to cry. I hobbled to the passenger door and I climbed in. By car, the city rose up and around us within minutes. As we moved through the dim, pre-dawn streets, I looked out at the place I'd hoped never to return to. The things that a woman will make a guy do, huh? Boy, I'm telling you, man. The things that a woman will make a man do. This visual novel doesn't escape that, or doesn't avoid the craziness that a woman can make, the things a woman can make a guy do, for sure. I think it looks like I made a good choice by going to the main road, huh? It looks so much more decrepit than I had imagined. The buildings were totally overgrown. There were broken windows and crumbling bricks, and the roads were all cracked apart. Now this is reminding me of The Last of Us right now, with the city all broken up and crumbling bricks and roads all cracked apart and everything like that. Yeah, The Last of Us is what this reminds me of now. Yeah, definitely looks like The Last of Us with the overgrown plants and everything. Here and there, bits of keep your distance tape fluttered, forgotten. The people who were left did not need to be reminded. There was a lot of vandalism, too. We drove past one dusty-looking grocery store. which had 3 people lined up outside, each of them wearing a heavy-duty mask and spaced at least 8 feet apart from one another. I couldn't imagine how tough it must have been on Mallory and her family living here. Yeah, that's for sure. Trying to stay safe and survive in rundown dumps like this. The hospital came into view pretty quickly. I thanked the driver profusely for the ride, yeah, no doubt. And God for her, right? Hopping out of the car almost before it had even stopped. Central Hospital. When I saw the med kit erected in the street outside the hospital, I almost couldn't believe my eyes. It existed. Actually existed. Just like the email bulletin said it would. But there was hardly anyone around. A medical worker, decked out in PPE, emerged from the tent, holding a clipboard and looking around. A man with a small child called out from several feet away, and the worker began asking questions I couldn't hear. This was how they were saving the world? Quietly, and with an eerie calm. Daring to hope, I looked around for Mallory. But if by some miracle she had made her way here, then maybe everything would actually be okay. I spotted another small group lingering nearby, and I lurched towards them.
I'm looking for a girl. Her name is Mallory. Her hair is long and white. She's wearing purple.
I moved from person to person, pleading, but no one had an answer for me. All of a sudden, I heard the faint squeal of a megaphone, a voice cracking over a near-empty street.
If you are awaiting preventative care, we ask that you remain patient while we triage symptomatic individuals. If you are currently experiencing symptoms like fever, headache, fatigue, or dry coughing, or have recently been in close contact with someone who is, please proceed to the screening area for assessment.
The medical worker was showing the man and the child in the medical worker was showing the man and the child into the med tent now. I staggered over.
Do you see a very sick girl dressed in purple?
The medic looked at me, startled.
I'm sorry, no. Who is she? And have you been in close contact with this person?
If she's not here, can you help me find her? Because she's really sick, and I need to find her and bring her here.
If you've been in contact with an infected individual, then the most important thing right now is for you to get assessed and admitted for treatment.
Agreed.
You do understand how rapidly the virus proliferates. The sooner we can begin treatment, the better your chances will be. Please, follow me.
But no, I have to...
Please. Right now, you are potentially shedding the virus in a public space. You need to enter the med tent.
I looked around at the near empty street. I wanted to keep arguing, but what could I say now? The medic must have seen the pain and hopelessness on my face.
I will try to find out about your friend. Now please. I need you to enter the med tent.
No. We're going to accept treatment.
Okay.
After that, everything became a blur. Oh, let's go ahead and save. Yeah, because remember we were supposed to save. We'll save it right here. Okay, inside the tent, I was brought to a makeshift bed. The bed was surrounded by heavy plastic curtains that distorted everything around me. Machines, the hazmat suits, the flapping canvas walls. The noisy buzz of a generator was like a jackhammer in my ears. A spiral of guilt and confusion consumed me now. Was I sick? No, all the horrible feelings in my body were because I'd been running so hard through the night. Weren't they? Or had I felt the inklings of them before? Someone checked my temperature, asked me some questions, took my blood. Before I knew it, I was being wheeled from the tent to the hospital building for a quarantine.
Don't worry, we're going to take care of you. Everything's going to be all right.
I didn't know who was talking to me because I couldn't see anybody's face. All I knew was I didn't really believe them. After being admitted to the hospital, receiving preventative treatment, and being monitored closely for symptoms, I was finally allowed to leave. A week had passed, and by that time there was no way for me to know what might have happened to Mallory. I searched for her, of course, but it wasn't like the old days, when you could file a missing persons report, or when someone would be able to find a way to contact you about a loved one's passing. I returned to the cabin all alone. The whole scene looked just wrong somehow. The land and the trees and the cabin itself all looked dried out and colorless. There was nothing welcoming about this place. Nothing that felt warm or safe. Aww. Near the front porch, I found a package which looked like it had been left outdoors a little bit too long, and my heart sank.
It must be that order I placed for drone delivery. With the first aid kit and the aspirin and...
Oh, and the ring I think he ordered? I bent down to pick up the package and sat there on my porch to open it. There it was, the first aid kit, nicely stocked. The fresh bottle of aspirin, tiny and sealed. And there was the ring I had bought for Mallory. The one with the dainty purple stone that reminded me so much of her. I stared at it for a while. I started talking to myself.
Do you wish you'd never met her? Yes.
Wow.
That's a lie. Of course it is. But I wish I'd made different choices. I wish I hadn't lost her. Yeah.
A cold, brisk wind rushed past, pulling the last few crisp brown trees off the leaves, sending them skittering. One whacked me in the face before flying off into the garden.
Thanks, wind.
I stood up. I put the ring on some twine or something to wear around my neck. And then what?
And then nothing. Maybe I'll get struck by lightning.
Wow. At least that would be something to look forward to. Meeting Mallory again in whatever afterlife there was. And maybe we could be ghosts together. We could haunt the cabin and scare off any trespassers by flapping our sheets and rattling our chains. As I turned to reach the door, something purple seemed to flash in the corner of my eye. For the briefest moment, I thought it was Mallory. But of course, there was nothing there. Man, this is so grim and so sad. Someday, I thought to myself, heading inside. I shut the cabin door behind me and went to put on the kettle. Aww. That's so sad. Game over. Achievement unlocked, Plague City. So I didn't realize this game was so close to being over. But we're going to go ahead and continue. This is why Choco Tuesday came in and said, be sure you save the game before every choice. And the last choice, I did not save the game. So we're going to go ahead, guys, and we're going to load the game for first aid here. And we're going to go ahead and head for the highway. We're going to do the same thing here again. I think we made a good choice there. But we're going to look at some of the different endings.
Get in.
This won't take too long.
Look, her name is...
If you
Do you see...
I'm sorry, no. And have you been...
If she's not here...
If you've been in contact, you do understand...
But no! I have to...
Please. I will try to find out about your friend.
Get that good
Yeah,
ending.
please.
Yeah, we definitely did get the good ending the first time, did we? We're going to insist on getting Mallory help first, but let's go ahead and save here, right here. Back, and then we'll make the choice.
I can't stop until I find her. Please, there's no one here, but she's somewhere. And if I can just find her and get her back here in time, that's a life saved.
The medic looked kind of lost. I was already backing away, getting ready to start running again. If Mallory wasn't here, then she had to be at the planetarium, or at least on her way to it.
Wait! Don't go yet.
The medic disappeared into inside the tent. A couple of people who had been waiting nearby moved closer, hovering. It was probably wrong of me to race ahead of them, demanding the lone medic's attention, but honestly, whatever, wasn't as though there were crowds and crowds of people waiting for aid. The only thing I cared about was Mallory. The medic reemerged, holding out a bulky handset.
Take this. It's a satellite phone. We have a few of them for contacting other med centers. As soon as you find your friend, call us. If we know where you are, we might be able to send help.
That's cool. A wave of gratitude washed over me as I took the sat phone. I definitely didn't have to be told twice. Time had never been more of the essence.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was already hurrying away, almost in disbelief at this blessing. I carried on down the street, calling Mallory's name. Though everything seemed so deserted, there were a handful of people around who would turn to look at me puzzled. They avoided my path, and I avoided theirs. I reached back into my memory, trying to get my bearings and figure out which way to go. The planetarium was closer to the river, I knew that, so I started down the street in that direction. My head was spinning and I couldn't feel my foot anymore at all, but I kept on going, leaving bloody shoe prints behind me. Hope was the only thing keeping me going. I treaded over the rubble in the streets, passing broken hazard signs and empty storefronts, unable to stop myself from imagining the riots that must have taken place here years ago. When the top of the old planetarium building came into view, I sprinted the rest of the way. I looked at the buildings surrounding that one. Which one was the apartment building where Mallory lived? I scanned all the windows and balconies in sight, looking for a sign of her. I turned in a circle, searching every street corner and bus stop I could see. It was like a ghost town. I tipped my head back to call out for Mallory. And that's when I caught sight of a purple figure on the rooftop overhead. Oh, hell yeah!
Mallory! Mallory! Don't move! I'm coming!
I didn't even know if she could hear me. I just hurried as fast as my body would let me, around the building to the fire escape. A dry, rattling feeling was building up in my chest. I could hardly breathe. I reached the top of the fire escape and hauled myself up onto the roof where I was sure I had seen Mallory. I looked around for her, and for a moment my body ceased all functions, and I could actually feel my heart skipping a beat. Oh boy. Good view though from up here. Where was she?
Mallory!
A cool breeze blew past me, and all I could do was stand there for a few moments processing everything that was happening now.
I'm here.
Wow, it's her! I turned to find the source of that small, weak voice. There she was at the opposite edge of the rooftop, her delicate frame backlit by the gently rising sun. Dark hollows hung under her eyes and in her cheeks. She trembled, barely able to hold herself upright. I'm gonna guess she went back to her home and saw that her sister had died.
Why are you here?
She didn't look at me as she spoke, and my throat felt like it was twisting shut.
Your letter. I found it, and I couldn't just let you go.
She listened and continued to gaze out onto the cityscape, avoiding eye contact with me. The avoiding eye contact with me kind of scares me here. What's going on, girl?
You shouldn't be here. It's dangerous for you to be close to me.
Oh. She was so out of breath. I approached her slowly, terrified that she would just float away.
That doesn't matter to me now. I care about you too much. I love you, Mallory.
She turned her face, finally giving me a weak smile.
You dummy. I love you too. That's why I had to leave.
Aww. She swayed then, as though turning to look at me had made her dizzy, and her body dipped towards the ledge. Uh-oh. I lunged, I panicked and grabbed Mallory's narrow arms. In one swift movement, I had pulled her onto myself and redirected the shift and weight to have her fall into my arms. We saved her from falling off that building. Good one. Gently, I helped her lay down. Her cheeks were blood red, her skin like fire. She struggled to keep her eyes open. Oh man, she doesn't look good.
I don't have much time left.
Aww.
Maybe you're just a dream.
I'm no dream, Mallory.
No, Mallory, you don't understand. There's a treatment. There's a treatment, and it's right here in the city, and I love you.
There's a cure?
I nodded vigorously, fumbling for the sat phone I'd shoved into my pocket.
My sister wasn't home. Do you think maybe she managed to get the cure?
My shoulders rounded as I fought back tears. Of course, Mallory wouldn't even think of herself, not even now.
I'm going to get you help. I'm calling right now, and someone's gonna come.
The phone was in my hands, my thumbs poised over the stiff, tactile buttons. The number, it had been printed on the med tent, but what was it? Oh no! Oh no! We'll save it here. I don't remember, I didn't see that. What? I have no idea. I don't think drawing a blank is gonna be good. I think we need to... Wow, I didn't even think to, like, memorize the number. I'm gonna think it's this one. Let's go with number 1. Yes, that was it. I'm just taking a guess, guys. Thank you, brain. I thought as the ring started to go through. You're welcome, replied my brain as more rings went through. I started to worry that no one would pick up, but then finally, somebody did. I didn't know if it was the same medic who had given me the sat phone, but either way, I immediately started rattling off every detail I could about where we were and how to get here. And then I threw the phone down and wrapped my arms around Mallory.
Someone's coming. Help is coming.
All I could hope for now was that they would get here fast enough.
It was selfish of me to stay with you. I should have known.
Oh man.
No, don't start that.
She paused, sputtering and coughing weakly, and then she tried to smile, but tears washed across her eyes instead.
I'm so sorry.
Aw, this is heartbreaking. Her eyes began to close, and I could tell she was starting to fade.
You have absolutely nothing to apologize for. I was alone for so long, I forgot what it was like to live. And then you came into my world, and...
Tears began to roll down my cheeks.
Having you in my life has been the best thing to ever happen to me. And I cannot wait for us to go home and live happily ever after together.
Too weak to wipe away her tears, they fell onto the cold concrete blocks we were resting on. So she can't even wipe away her tears. This is sad. A chill breeze blew up the side of the building and carried with it the stale smell of pavement.
Stay with me, Mallory. We're going to get you help, and everything's going to be okay.
We waited together on the rooftop as the sun came up, splitting open the clouds and shining on us like a spotlight. I willed the medic to get here faster. The wait felt like an eternity. And then, far below, I heard the rumble of a vehicle pulling up, a door popping open, and a distant voice. It was 2 weeks before Mallory and I were finally able to return back to the cabin. Mallory had spent most of that time quarantined, receiving the breakthrough R-Panavax treatment, which carried her gently back to the brink of death. Or carried her gently back from the brink of death, not to the brink of death. I received a preventative treatment as well, and was monitored closely for symptoms. Finally, we were discharged, and we found our way back home, where all the leaves and gold and red mountains had snow on their peaks. The first thing we did was check on the chickens, only to find that they had torn open the feed bag and had to feed themselves a feast while we were away. They were very fat, and also very happy to see us. Aww. We took a careful stroll around the rest of the property, too, just to make sure everything looked okay and to make note of any issues I'd need to deal with. Then we were about ready to head inside. Near the front porch, we found a package which looked like it had been left outdoors a little bit too long.
It must be that order I placed for drone delivery. With the first aid kit and the aspirin and...
My voice trailed off.
It feels like a million years ago.
I sat down on the porch step to open the package, hardly able to wait. Ignoring the first aid kit and the aspirin bottle, I pulled out the small cardboard box that I knew would have Mallory's ring inside. I looked up at her, suddenly a little bit nervous.
I have a gift for you.
A gift? Really? Ew! What is it?
I grinned at how cute she was. I held the box up to her, and she danced a little as she took it. She lifted the lid to peer inside.
Oh my goodness. It's so pretty.
It reminded me of you.
Her eyes looked so shiny. She smiled and leaned down to kiss me.
Try it on.
Okay.
She took the ring out of its little box and slid it onto her narrow finger. I had totally guessed the ring size, but luckily, it was a perfect fit. Kind of like how I guessed the right phone number, right? She tilted her hand back and forth, smiling at the silver bow and glistening stone. Seeing her so happy made me happy.
I love you, Mallory.
I love you too.
Feels good to say that when we're not in a life or death situation, am I right?
She giggled. We went inside together, and for a long while we just enjoyed each other's company. We ate, we talked, we laughed, and we held each other. When the sun dropped below the horizon and the sky grew dark, I thought back to what Mallory had told me about her love for the stars.
What would you say if I asked you to spend this evening stargazing with me?
I would say I know the most perfect spot.
Up on top. I felt my grin get even bigger.
I'll grab some blankets. Meet me up there?
Sure.
A few minutes later, I climbed up onto the roof with a big blanket folded over my shoulder. Mallory sat waiting for me, watching me with those big, beautiful eyes and the sweetest of smiles. My heart felt warmer than it ever had. The pain and loss we'd experienced would always be there. But now there was also joy to be felt. So much joy. So much life to be lived. There would always be sorrow and endings, but like a sunset or a flower, the impermanence of this very moment, the impermanence of this very moment was exactly what made it so valuable. I went to sit with Mallory under the stars. The end. Well, I think that was a good ending. That was probably one of the better endings. I am kind of curious what happens if we go through the forest on the trail. I'm going to guess we probably die or something. I don't know, but we're going to find out. Let's go ahead and go back to the title screen. Let's load the game. And let's go back here. And let's go to where he's running through the forest. Read the spam anyway.
Public patient right.
I wonder what happens if you don't read the
Is this
spam. You don't find out about it.
Mallory! Mallory! Mallory!
We don't love.
That's that damn bear trap. Both options seemed so risky, I took my chances and started down the footpath into the woods. Already, I could barely walk, my shoe felt tight and wet, and every step sent pain shooting through my soul, especially on the rugged forest floor. I shone the flashlight back and forth across the ground and the trees, avoiding fallen branches and jutting rocks. The thought of Mallory being out here alone, sickly, and without any light terrified me. I knew I wasn't moving fast enough. I tried to pick up the pace, ignoring the throbbing pain in my foot, and breathing hard through my nose. A sudden glimmer caught my eye. I turned, pointing the beam of light toward whatever I had seen, but the motion was clumsy and I lost my balance. My pant leg caught a jutting branch as I fell. I felt the fabric tear. The flashlight beam showed me the white tail of a deer, startled by my fall and dashing away into the darkness. Oh man. I managed to catch myself by grabbing a tree, but even leaning heavily against it, shivering cold, with the flashlight beginning to dim and my foot going numb, everything just seemed hopeless. My heart ached to be back at home, back with her. Just a few hours earlier, that's where I wanted to be. I straightened myself up, stepping back onto the path. Tears clouded my vision. I blinked them away. That was when I noticed the rip in my pant leg. These were the same pants I'd been wearing the night I met Mallory. I had torn them coming up to the cabin. The tear had been fixed with a heart patch. I remembered Mallory taking that box of clothes and seeing her later with a needle and thread as she worked to stitch up the rips and fasten buttons. Aww, that is so cute, so sweet. But she hadn't just mended the pants, she had embroidered them and left a sweet token of herself and her ability to love and care for others. That is really cool. My heart swelled and ached, and all I wanted to do was to cry. Why did this have to happen? Why did I have to lose everyone I ever dared to love? No, I refused to accept it. I stood up, my determination to find her renewed. But my body wouldn't comply with my head. It wasn't just my foot now, but most of my leg. Numb, full of pins and needles, interspersed with pain. Each stab knocking my knee out of place and sending me staggering. I wasn't going fast enough. I couldn't go fast enough. I held onto trees and used them to drag myself forwards, too dizzy to even look at where I was going. Slowly, Pell City lights grew visible through the brush. The sky was starting to lighten.
Mallory.
Oh boy, he doesn't sound good. I called out for her, but my voice came out weak and dry. I coughed and groaned. I felt like I'd never catch up to her. I would never find her. But there, rising up before me, was the city. Finally, I reached the city. The sun wasn't up yet, and the streets were dim and mostly empty. It looked so much more decrepit than I'd ever imagined. Buildings were totally overgrown. There were broken windows and crumbling bricks, and the roads were all cracked apart. Here and there, bits of keep your distance tape fluttered, forgotten. The people who were left did not need to be reminded. There was a lot of vandalism, too. I walked past one dusty-looking grocery store, which had 3 people lined up outside, each of them wearing a heavy-duty mask and spaced at least 8 feet apart from one another. I couldn't imagine how tough it must have been on Mallory and her family living here, trying to stay safe and survive in a rundown dump like this. So I wonder if this is going to go to the same place we'd already been. Mallory had said she had lived at the top of the tallest building on the street near the planetarium. Thank God I had asked her enough questions to know that. She was heading back to find her sister. That's where she'd be going. But would she have even made it that far? I wondered what the chances were that she'd even ended up at the medical center, either on her own or because someone else had decided to help her. After all, if the news bulletin I'd received was true, then she might actually be able to receive treatment. Well, I think we know what's going to happen if we go to the hospital, so we're just going to go for the planetarium. We will go ahead and save this right here. We're going to head for the planetarium based on what happened before. I reached back into my memory, trying to get my bearings. We read a lot of this already. Leaving bloody shoe print. Yeah, we already read this exact same thing. Yep, that's what I thought inside of her.
Mallory! Don't move!
We've already read all this.
Mallory!
I'm.
So then it looks like we get the,
What?
Your
looks like
letter.
we're right back where we were.
You.
That doesn't matter.
You. I don't.
But remember,
much
we don't
time
have
left.
the walkie-talkie now. We don't have that cat phone now.
Maybe you're just.
No, Mallory, you don't understand.
This is gonna be sad because we don't have that that phone.
There's a treatment. There's a treatment, and it's right here in the city, and I love you. Don't you see? I could have saved you. Why did you have to run away from me?
This is different. She managed to look up at me, her eyes sparkling more than ever.
There's a cure?
I nodded vigorously.
My sister wasn't home. Do you think maybe she managed to get the cure?
My shoulders rounded as I fought back tears. Of course, Mallory wouldn't even think of herself.
And you. You can get it too. It was selfish of me to stay with you. I should have known.
No, don't start that.
Paused, sputtering and coughing weakly. She tried to smile, but her tears washed across her eyes instead.
Promise me. Promise me you'll take the cure.
Yeah, because she's gonna die.
I don't want to die. Knowing I made you sick.
Aw, man, that's sad. Her eyes began to close, and I could tell that she was starting to fade.
No, Mallory! I don't want you to go! I'll carry you down to the hospital right now, or I'll yell until they find us up here.
I shook her.
You can't go. Please. I was alone for so long, I forgot what it was like to live. And then you came into my world, and...
Tears began to roll down my cheeks.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Aw.
You don't need to have any regrets. Because having you in my life has been the best thing to ever happen to me. So don't you dare regret anything.
Too weak to wipe away her tears, they fell onto the cold concrete blocks they were resting on. A chill breeze blew up the side of the building and carried with it the stale smell of pavement.
Promise me you'll go on. Please. The baby chickens, they need you.
Aww.
Promise me.
Yes, I promise. I promise, Mallory.
A raven cawed loudly somewhere nearby. The wind died down, and suddenly everything was impossibly silent. Still. Mallory's hand slid off my lap and fell onto the ground. Slowly, I watched her eyes close one last time, and a quiet peace fell over us. All color had left her soft cheeks, and I felt her presence leave me. Look at her eyes. Look how they're dead now. That's so sad. The sunrise shone a bright beam of light on us, almost as if we were players in a tragic play caught under the spotlight. Softly, I grazed my hand across her cheek. I felt her warmth one last time before she turned cold. Why couldn't I have found her sooner? Why? It was a little while before I was able to return to the cabin. As much as I wanted to give up on myself, on everything else, I had made a promise to Mallory. So I went to the med tent, and I got assessed and admitted for preventive treatment with the R Pandavax. They kept a close watch on me for over a week before they finally deeming me fit to go home. I went back to the cabin, which didn't quite feel like home anymore. It was still the same beautiful landscape, but I couldn't put my finger on what was different, so I just went about my business like normal. The chickens were fine. They'd ripped open the feed bag and had a feast in my absence, so they were fat and in good spirits. There was a fresh crop of weeds in the garden and on the grass. Like Mallory and I had never cleared them out at all. Near the front porch, I found a package which looked like it had been left outdoors a little too long, and my heart sank.
It must be that order I placed for drone delivery. With the first aid kit and the aspirin and...
Went to pick up the package. It sat right there on the porch to open it. There was the first aid kit, nicely stocked, the fresh bottle of aspirin, shiny and sealed. There was the ring I bought for Mallory. Again, listen to the music too here. Like, the music is so sad in the sad endings. Very well done art. Very, very interesting story. And I was wondering, before if this was going to be a bittersweet visual novel or if it was going to be a happy visual novel or what it would be. Well, it was all of them. Depending on the choices you make at the end of the novel, all of those are possible. And here we have, it looks like the same ending pretty much that we had when, when we decided to get treatment before looking for her.
What now? I don't know. I wish I'd made different choices.
Yeah, this is
I
exactly
wish
the
I'd been
same
able
ending.
to save her.
There really wasn't much more to it than that. I got up and went inside, taking the ring with me. I put it on a string to wear around my neck. I decided that I'd make some tea, and then I had to think about it for a minute. I decided I'd do something good. Thanks to science, medicine, and basic compassion, there was hope for humanity again. I would be a part of that. I would help the world. Well, this is a little bit different than I thought. I thought it was going to be the exact same ending. We can make things even better than they'd ever been before. I'd do my best for her. But the same ending here is in the picture. So we're going to go ahead and continue here. Choco Tuesday says that there is another ending as well if I get the sat phone and use the wrong number. Okay. So where was it? Which one was it? It was here, right? Yeah, right here. So we're just going to go ahead and say, I probably wouldn't do this one because that's going to seem like I don't know even what to call. I would have always taken a 50-50 chance, but let's say I guessed the wrong one. I punched in the number hoping I had remembered it correctly. A robotic voice told me through the phone that this number was not in service. So at this point, I would just go back and call the other number. Had I remembered it incorrectly, I thought back to what I had seen on the sign and the tin, willing my memory to grasp the all-important number fully. I dialed again, but to my horror, the outcome was the same. I didn't know the number, and I got an achievement called, "You had one job." Damn. I looked down at Mallory's face, all the beautiful hope in her eyes. No, thought my brain dumbly. No, this can't, I can't. I can't let her know, I thought calmly in response. I pressed a random string of numbers and held the sat phone up to my ear.
We're here! We're just across the planetarium building! I found her, and she's okay! You'll be right here?
I tried my hardest to sound convincing, but my hand shook so hard I dropped the phone. I leaned over Mallory, holding her tight.
Help is on the way! You're going to be alright! We're going to be alright! We're going to spend a little time in the hospital, but then we can go home, back to the cabin, where we're gonna live happily ever after.
It was selfish of me to stay with you. I should have known.
No, don't start that.
Started coughing, she tried to smile, but tears go across her eyes.
So sorry.
Her eyes began to close. I could tell she was
You
starting
have
to fade.
absolutely nothing to apologize for. I was alone for so long, I forgot what it was like to live. And then you came into my world, and
Tears began to
you
roll
don't
down
need
my
to
cheeks.
have any regrets. Because having you in my life has been the best thing to ever happen to me. So don't you dare regret anything.
Too weak to wipe away her tears, they fell onto the cold concrete.
Let's just rest. You can close your eyes if you need to. We'll wait just like this until they get here. Everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay.
Wind dies down and suddenly everything was impossibly silent and still. And she's dead again. We can see it in her eyes. Mallory's hand slid off my lap and fell onto the ground. Slowly I watched her eyes close one last time, and a quiet peace fell over us. All color had left her soft cheeks. and I felt her presence leave me. Sunrise shone a bright beam of light on us, almost as if we were players in a tragic play caught under the spotlight. Softly I grazed my hand across her cheek. I felt her warmth one last time before she turned cold.
I'm sorry.
I had failed her. I had come so close to saving her. But I had failed. With a heavy sigh, I got to one knee and slipped my hands underneath Mallory's lifeless body. With ease, I managed to lift her up into my arms. She was always much lighter than I had expected. I held her and looked over the city one last time. The sun continued to rise in the sky, and soon I knew the residents would be waking up. Somewhere back at the cabin, I imagined my rooster was crowing. I apologized to him and the hens, knowing that I wouldn't be back in time to feed them. In that moment, nothing felt real anymore. While it did make me happy to hear that people would finally have a cure, and the sadness would end, I only felt bitter resentment myself. A raven was cawing loudly somewhere nearby. Numbness set in, and even the sun's warmth had no power over me anymore. I couldn't feel anything, and I didn't want to. I looked down at Mallory's delicate face and studied her perfect lips, pale cheeks, and wispy hair. She was all I wanted. So then, we would be together. Yep. And I was gonna say he probably picks her up and lets himself fall off the building. But nope. Wow, quite a drastic ending. I'm glad I picked the right number because I had no idea what it was. Yeah, I was not paying attention to the numbers on that tent. I didn't think I had to. So I was lucky as hell I picked the good ending when I had that choice of the two numbers to call. Wow. So that we saw three or four different endings there, guys. And we did get the good ending, it looks like. But yeah, I see why Choco Tuesday came in and said, hey, make sure you save your game before all the choices, because it's gonna, you're gonna want to have that option again. And we definitely did. So Cabin Fever was pretty damn good visual novel. I feel like I was pretty fortunate with this one, that I picked a good one. I've been lucky, guys. There are a lot of visual novels on Steam. Most of the really good ones I've read, I will be honest, have been free on Steam. There's been a lot of really good visual novels that have been free. And some of the ones that I paid like $20 for and stuff like that haven't been nearly as good as some of the either like $5 ones. This one was $10. It was pretty good. But some of the better visual novels, like I've read better visual novels than this one, I think. And a lot of those have been free. So definitely check out some of my visual novels over on my YouTube channel. If you haven't checked those out, they're in playlists. I have a whole big playlist of short visual novels. Definitely check out some of those if you haven't seen some of them. I've played a lot of these visual novels over the years. Some of them haven't been so good, but a lot of them really have. I do want to go ahead and thank you guys for watching my playthrough of Cabin Fever. There's probably a couple of more paths than I could get through, but I think we get the sense of what can happen. So I want to go and thank you guys for watching. This has been Zaxter99. Be sure you comment down below on my YouTube video here, and let me know what you guys think. If you listen to all of this, be sure to let me know. I would love to. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. You guys have been great. Have a good one, everybody.